Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Heather and today I'm going to talk through all of the books that I bought in the month of July. So the first two books that I bought in the month of July are children's books, which I don't often buy, but these two are very, very special for me. The first is a rare book. I had to track this down on ABE Books, which is Girls to the Rescue, Volume 1 by Bruce Lansky. And this is a book that I remember reading in elementary school, particularly when I was on the school bus, though I'm sure I read it everywhere. And it is a collection of either unusual fairy tales or fairy tales that are not as well known, or original takes on fairy tales where the heroines are far too busy trying to save the day to wait around for Prince Charming. They are smart, they are sweet, and they explain a lot about the way that I grew up. The inspiration to purchase this book came about when I was watching the opera Cendrillon with my friend Lauren, virtually, and the first story in this collection came to me so vividly. And that first story is The Fairy Godmother's Assistant, which is about a young girl who is the fairy godmother's assistant. And the fairy godmother goes away on vacation. And this young girl who has no magical powers has to try and help everyone in the kingdom who comes to her door with a problem. And she does in the best way possible. I've already started reading a couple of the short stories and I absolutely love them so far. So I can't wait to finish it up and see the other short stories and how much of them I remember and shaped me as I grew up. The second children's book I bought is Paddington's Finest Hours by Michael Bond. I have loved Paddington since I was 5 years old. He holds a very special place in my heart. And this is the last book that Michael Bond wrote before he passed a few years ago. So I haven't read any of the stories in this collection yet, but I definitely will soon, and it'll get passed around my family too, because they love Paddington just as much as I do. After that, I went on a bit of a spree for some international books that were hard to track down. This is how I rationalize buying so many books. And the first international book that I picked up is Chérie by Colette. Now, I've talked about Colette on my channel before. I just read 3 of her novellas, and I have read the complete Claudine novels as well. This is the last of her stories that I am interested in, and it is about a young man called Chérie and his affair with a much older woman. And I've heard that it is also semi-autobiographical, as Colette may have had, or possibly did have, an affair with her young stepson when she was in her 40s, I believe. This is a very well-known piece. Major Hollywood movies have been made based on this novel, so I'm very intrigued to read the original. Then I bought 2 of Lucy Worsley's non-fiction books that I do not already own, and I think this now completes my Lucy Worsley non-fiction collection. So far, of course, she's still writing. The first of those books is Cavalier, which tells the story of a 17th century Lord, William Cavendish, and all of his adventures through the reign of Charles I and Charles I's subsequent execution, and the fallout that that has for Cavendish. Lucy Worsley is a fascinating television presenter and writer, so I'm sure this will be very illuminating. Next up is a book that's actually going on my August TBR, which is A Very British Murder. And this chronicles how the public's fascination for murder stories grew, whether it be grisly murder stories on the news, or an Agatha Christie novel, or modern cop dramas. Why are we so fascinated by the process and psychology of murder? The last book I picked up on that particular spree was Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. And this tells the story of a young woman who gets a note from her sister frantically calling her to her manor house because something is going wrong in her relationship. quite honestly, that was all I needed to know, that it takes place in the 1950s, that it takes place in Mexico, and that it is a Gothic mystery. The combination of those three things is absolutely wonderful for me, and I'm going to save this until mid-September or early October to read during Hispanic History Month. And the last book I picked up this month is one that is so sweet and so special. It's another Lucy Worsley. It's The Austen Girls. I know I said I had collected all of Lucy Worsley's nonfiction that I could, and I have. This is in fact young adult or middle grade fiction. Lucy Worsley has also begun writing a series of historical fiction for young readers about various time periods that she is also very passionate about. So I believe there's one for Mary Tudor, there's one about Queen Victoria, and this one focuses on Jane Austen, but from a different angle. This book looks at two of Jane Austen's nieces and the relationship they have with their aunt and the advice that she gives them. This is particularly special as it was shipped to me from the Chorleywood Bookshop, which is a bookshop that Lucy Worsley loves herself and visits often. So if you order one of her books from them, it comes with this fabulous signed book plate, which to me is very, very exciting since I love everything that Lucy Worsley does. This looks to be very sweet as well as beautifully designed and I'm sure meticulously researched. So I'm very excited to get to this as soon as I can. And that's all, everyone. I do have a couple more books in the mail, but I'm trying to restrain myself as much as possible, even though I know I will probably break that resolve within a few weeks. But until then, have you read any of these books and loved them? Don't tell me if you didn't like them, that kind of ruins the hype. And also tell me if you are also interested in any of these books, or if you have any recommendations for me based on any of the books that I've hauled. Until next time, be safe, be well, and happy reading. Bye everyone!